Happy Wednesday, everybody. Oh my gosh. My mom's calling me at the beginning of the show. Doesn't she know what I do on 1:30 on Wednesdays?
She's wishing you.
I'll have to call her back. Tomorrow's her birthday. So first, let me start. Welcome once again to another fabulous edition of Chamber Chat presented by Bose McKinney and Evans, LLP. Thank you, Bose McKinney and Evans, for all of your legal needs. I'd like to turn it over now to Alan Becker from Bose McKinney and Evans to introduce our speaker today.
Thank you, Brad. Today's guest is Lawrence Police Chief David Hofmann. Prior to coming to Lawrence 5 years ago, Chief Hofmann was the head of IMPD's Southwest District. He now heads up a department of 50 officers for the 18th largest city in Indiana. So welcome, Chief Hofmann.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you very much, Alan. So Chief Hofmann, welcome to Chamber Chat, the fourth most watched show in all of Lawrence.
It's awesome.
I don't really know if that's a real thing or not. But anyhow, this is our first attempt. Usually, so this all started out of COVID. So If you think back, I had been on the job exactly 5 weeks and we were all told to go home and not emerge from our homes indefinitely. I'm like, I better prove my worth somehow.
Yes.
So there was this new Zoom thing and I'm like, okay, bringing in people we know and introduce them to the community. And so I started doing it from my porch and my attic and the office. And now this is the first one where we've actually been out in the field. So, anyhow, that's what we're doing. So now we're just here to talk about stuff going on in the community.
Yeah,
so
love it.
Let me ask you, how did you get your start? How did you end up in Lawrence? I know that you were with IMPD before here, but just give a brief synopsis of where did young David Hofmann start and how did you end up in Lawrence?
Okay, let's see. You said brief, right?
We got a half hour.
All right. Well, first I was born, which goes without saying. Sorry. No, so I'm a Franklin Central High School guy. Went down to IU Bloomington, got a degree in marketing and communications. My calling at that time was more for the corporate world. My father and grandfather were both IPD officers, and my dad kind of steered me away from law enforcement. Honestly, he knew how difficult it was, how trying it was, and but that's something I really wanted to do. So a couple years after corporate life, I was in the marketing department with St. Francis Hospital. I just felt the calling to get into law enforcement. So I wound up at IPD in 1997, following in my dad's footsteps and my grandfather's, and just had a wonderful career there, surrounded by fantastic people. I kind of got promoted through the ranks, sergeant, lieutenant, wound up, as the introduction mentioned, as the Southwest District Commander, which the districts in IMPD function much like independent police stations. There are 6 service districts. Each one has a commander and each one has a whole staff of officers and detectives and civilian personnel. I was able to do that for a couple of years. I absolutely loved it. Nothing could have torn me away from that except for one possibility, and that is when I learned that the position of Chief of Police at the Lawrence Police Department was soon to be available and that they were looking for a chief. So I submitted my resume, not exactly sure if I was qualified or if they would be interested in me. I sort of knew this guy, Steve Collier. Met him a couple times, and I knew that he was a former school teacher and had spent a couple years on the council, or 4 years on the council. So when he won mayor, I was just really intrigued about his what he wanted to do for Lawrence, and I wanted to be part of that positive transformation. So resume, went through a couple interviews with a panel of people, and I'm just so grateful that Mayor Collier and his team saw fit to give me a chance. And the rest, as they say, is history. We've had an amazing run so far, and we're still going strong. You know, the mayor and his administration, the council saw fit to build us a new police station. We were the first in the area to implement body-worn cameras in 2017, which was a really big deal to us. We were the first, as I mentioned, to go with the system that we have now. And now in the state of Indiana, there's more than 40 agencies that have followed in our footsteps. So our fleet is now up and running. Our training is amazing. We host training all across the state. You'll see police cars from Evansville to Gary, from Richmond to Terre Haute, and all points in between at the Lawrence Police Station. And that's because their officers are coming to us for training. And last but not least, and I'll let you ask the next question, and honestly, last but not least, but probably last, but the number one most important asset that I haven't mentioned of our department is our people. We have amazing men and women who serve, who wear uniforms, who wear suits and ties, some detectives. Mm-hmm. So we have officers, detectives, we have dispatchers, we have civilian personnel, over 100, we're close to 115 total employees now that just do a fantastic job at fighting crime in Lawrence, making people feel welcome, making people feel included and important, standing up for victims, and just doing all those things that a police department, people of a police department do. And they do it as almost flawlessly as I can describe. It's very, very rare where we have any sort of errors, intentional, you think of a mistake of the head versus a mistake of the heart, Sometimes we make human style mistakes, right? Everybody does. But we don't have officers out there doing things for the wrong reason, in the wrong way, at the wrong time. So that's what's most impressive to me about the Lawrence Police Department is the people who do a very, very difficult job in this day and age under extreme scrutiny with every move they make recorded 30 frames per second, audio, video, high definition for review. It's amazing what they do. And that's kind of, I guess I strayed from the question a little bit. How did I get here? But that's how I got here. And I'm thrilled to be here.
So I wouldn't make it a day with a body camera.
I'll tell you, most people, you name the profession, healthcare, teaching, being a mechanic, whatever you can think of. Nobody would want to have their every move in the line of their employment recorded and saved for 190 days and sometimes for eternity. Because if there's a critical incident, a shooting, for example, those are saved forever, But if an officer responds to Porter's Books and Bread, somebody steals a bicycle out there, that video gets saved for 6 months. So that interaction, even the most low level, what you and I would consider unimportant to somebody else, whoever's bike that was, that's pretty darn important. And that interaction is saved, right? So it's tough. It is tough. And what our videos are showing us, by the way, is that the narrative that you're seeing nationally couldn't be more false. Our videos, time and time and time again, are showing us that our officers are doing a great job under tense and uncertain and rapidly evolving scenarios and situations, oftentimes where life and death is on the line, and they cannot make a mistake. Bad guys can make a mistake, right? They don't care who they shoot in the background or who they endanger during a vehicle pursuit, for example. Officers don't have that luxury. So yeah, it's tough for them to have everything they do recorded.
Sheila and I witnessed a saint of a man who was directing traffic after Fourth Fest over the weekend.
Yeah.
Somebody tried to run him down and he just kind of let it go.
Well, I hope that was just an accident or an errant driver.
It was not. It was somebody that had to be police.
Okay.
Anyhow, so leading up to the show, I had a nice conversation with Mayor Collier, and he told me a little bit about your interview process. But what I did not get is, what was the chicken or the egg? So when you were interviewing, the police department's operating out of City Hall. I know he said that this might have been a slight downgrade in position for what you had. Did you come with a plan and say, Mayor Collier, I want to have a new police force. I want to be the shining star in Central Indiana. These are all the things I want to do, and this is how we're going to do it? Or did he sell Lawrence to you and say, here is my vision. We're going to have a new police station. We're going to have a new fleet of police vehicles. Right. We are going to professionalize this, and we are going to train the other officers in Central Indiana instead of the other way around. How did that happen?
So I mentioned earlier I had a panel-style interview with, I think, 7 panelists and some other witnesses that were watching. That was the is he qualified interview. The real interview came maybe a week or two later when Mayor Collier called me and said, I'd like to have breakfast with you at Cracker Barrel. By the way, wear jeans and a sweatshirt, you know? And we sat there, and he'll tell you this, we sat and had breakfast for probably 2 hours on a Saturday morning. And that's where it wasn't him selling Lawrence to me or me saying, hey, I want to turn Lawrence around, because that would be, first of all, that would be insulting to the officers that are here.
Yeah.
I think they just needed maybe just a little bit more leadership and direction, and they needed somebody to stay out of their way and let them do their jobs the way they know how to do it. And going back to our Cracker Barrel breakfast, it was a dialogue. You know, he told me right off the bat that he felt like we needed a police facility. And I shook my head and said, yes, sir, we do. You know, what can we do to make that happen? And he was, although very committed to the idea, he's a realist, he's a fiscal conservative, and he knows that he can't write a bunch of checks if there's no money in the bank to cash it. So we kind of had to get, we as in Mayor Collier and the controller at the time, Jason Fenwick, and the administrative team, we really kind of had to figure out with the finances of the city where we were and where we wanted to go. And you'll notice it wasn't until his 4th year of his first term, it was actually after Election Day when we cut the ribbon on that place. It would take any mayor, you know, a couple terms to accomplish what he has accomplished in one. And I'm not, whatever, politicizing this. It's just, it takes a long time to get a project like that literally off the ground and, you know, out of the ground. You know, it takes a long time. It took us 18 months to build it. It took us 18 months before that to design it. And the entire process, we were trying to inform the community, not sell, but inform the community of the need and the city's ability to pay for it without a tax increase. So that's an awful lot. I mean, that's a lot to chew on. And so luckily we were able to get it done. And again, luckily the mayor won a 2nd term. I think the voters recognized the accomplishments in this city, and now we're moving forward once again, you know? So again, I know it sounds like a sales pitch or something, but it's certainly not. It's 100% truth, and it's my perspective on things. And we're just so, I mean, every now and then I'll be back at the government center for a meeting or something, and I'll pop down what used to be in our old roll call room, our squad room, and it's pretty much abandoned now, and it just occurs to me, because now we're in the best police facility in central Indiana, if not the state. And I'll go back to where we came from, and it just makes me appreciate, you know, just what it is we have here in Lawrence. It is a crown jewel of a facility befitting the people who work there. And now we can talk about a hiring process in just a minute, but we've got a hiring process right now. We had the highest number of applicants in our police department's history, because people want to come and join us. You know, they want to work there. They want to work alongside officers that they've seen on Live PD. They want to be part of this culture that is the Lawrence Police Department, of professionalism, of patience, of just the way it should be done. And that's not me doing this. I have very little to do with it. It's those people I mentioned earlier that are out there doing a great job.
For those of you watching live, you are watching the Greater Lawrence Chamber of Commerce Chamber Chat. I'm Brad Kloffenstein, President of the Greater Lawrence Chamber. This is Dave Hoffman, Chief of the Lawrence Police Department. We are coming to you live from Porter Books and Bread on Lot and Loop at historic Fort Bend. We've got, let's see, in the room now, looks like we've got 6 or 7 people that are here live watching us, plus everybody. I'll change the view for everybody here real quick. Plus, looks like 10 of you out there that are watching online. So yeah, thank you all for joining us. Thank you very much to Bose McKinney and Evans LLP for sponsoring Chamber Chat. That would be Alan Becker here. So feel free to private message him with all your legal needs. So Dave, before I open this up to questions from people here in the room or online, let me ask you, the challenges of running a police department in a city like Lawrence. As Alan mentioned, we're the 18th largest city in Indiana, probably the most diverse. We go all the way from multi-million-dollar homes at Geist, all the way down to some of the poorest of the poor, and that is all in your district. You mentioned that we were on Live PD until they put that show on hiatus. Talk just a little bit about the challenges of the diversity of our people here, which also make us a great city, but the challenges that gives you as far as policing and just putting officers on the street.
Well, you hit the nail on the head in terms of diversity. The economic, socioeconomic, diverse nature of our city is really unmatched. I mean, like you said, we've got multi-million-dollar houses up in the northeast section of our jurisdiction, down to 42nd and Post, 42nd and Franklin, over by Pendleton Pike and 465, where we deal with homeless issues and we deal with a lot of domestic issues and some drug related offenses, violent crime, illegal guns. So our officers have to be very well rounded. And what we do, and this is by design, we don't just have officers work the neighborhood of 42nd Post all the time, and other areas or other officers work, 86th and Carroll all the time. They all work in these areas in various shifts at regular intervals, so that they're used to interacting with, checking a home alarm at a multi-million-dollar house, but they're also very well versed at, somebody running from them in a stolen car, driving into the Indianapolis jurisdiction, and how to handle that, how to treat people equitably. Okay, so the people that live up at 86th and Carroll are going to be treated with the same respect and dignity that our residents down on the southern part of our community can expect to be treated. And I don't care what your mortgage is, if you have a mortgage, if you rent, if you have a job, it does not matter. Our citizens, we are here to serve our citizens with equality and with the same level of professionalism. And that's not being patronizing to the poor. It's not, we're not pandering, I guess, to the rich. It's just, this is the level of service you can expect from our department. As far as challenges are concerned, I can tell you, I brought some stats here. I didn't know if we were going to be discussing statistics, but across the board in the city of Lawrence, this is people, they ask a lot of, hey, how's crime in Lawrence? What do your crime stats look like? And I can tell you, we analyze these, and you can see my little chart here going back to 2015. Over the past 6 years, we've only had 2 of those years where we had a very modest increase in the number of reported crimes. And on the other side, you can see all these reductions. So in 2016, we had a level of reported crimes, and it went down in 2017. It went up just a tick, and by that I mean out of 2,200 crimes, it went up by 20 additional crimes in 2018. And every year since then, we've been seeing reductions. So
for those of you at home or in the audience who cannot see this,
which is everybody,
and I'm going to make a broad generalization based on 30 seconds worth of looking at this. It looks like robbery and property crimes are definitely down. Vehicle thefts are down. Violent crimes looks to be up a little bit. Let me ask, of those violent crimes, how many of those are not drug related as a percentage?
It's hard to answer that. Drugs factor into a lot of them. Whether or not it's a drug deal, a drug transaction, but usually, and there are exceptions, but usually homicide victims are involved in a lifestyle, and it's not a blaming situation. It's trying to determine the root causes of violent crime, and it usually it's a result of criminal activity. Whether you're participating, whether you're the victim or a suspect or a witness, it's a lifestyle outside of what society deems is lawful. And and typically, and I know my colleagues in Indianapolis will say the same thing. If you're living a clean, wholesome, lawful life, your chances of being victimized by violent crime drop incrementally, right? It's when you step outside of the law of acceptable behavior, and you start getting involved in people, places, and behaviors that are dangerous, that's when people become victims of crime.
All right, let's open this up to questions. We go to the gallery. Do we have questions from anyone in the audience, either in person, online? You can raise your hand. You put down your sandwich. All right, then I'll go back to my questions. Oh, wait. Tiffany, you're muted. Unmute yourself. We'll bring you up.
Okay, can you hear me? I'm at my desk.
Loud and clear.
So I put my question in the chat, and I was just asking the chief. I said, how do you compare to your peer group within Indiana and the nation? Are they equally focused on training and cameras, or is your visionary leadership an anomaly, or is it just the standard?
Well, I think the statistics will show, for example, with body-worn cameras right now, last I heard about 60% of communities have body-worn cameras on their officers, and the 40% that do not they're not the major metro areas. You know, there's 20 major metropolitan areas defined in the US. They all have body-worn cameras. Indianapolis went to them last year. If you remember, they were the last major metro to go on board, and they actually went with the system we use, which is irrelevant. But in terms of training, in terms of hiring practices and trying to attract qualified minority applicants, I think every chief and sheriff and superintendent in the country is working towards that to ensure that our police force, whether it's municipal or a county sheriff or a state police, reflects the community that we serve. That's where that will help us achieve what we call police legitimacy and buy-in of the community. When a community feels like they are being policed, then that's where trust and community policing breaks down. You know, when people perceive the police department and the officers that serve on departments as an occupying force, as simply law enforcers, you know, those are the communities where you see the protests and where there's no civilian oversight, which we have here. Indianapolis has as well. We have civilian oversight in our hiring, in our disciplinary matters, which thankfully are very, very few and far between. And we have, we have a merit commission that really oversees all that we do. We have a board of works and public safety that oversees every contract we enter into, all the cars we buy, you know. So the promotions internally, if a police officer wants to get promoted to the rank of sergeant, or if a sergeant wants to get promoted to the rank of lieutenant, we don't just hand out those promotions and badges because somebody's my friend, for example. They have to go through rigorous testing to prove that they're the best qualified applicant, you know, in a group. And that's all overseen by people who are not police officers and not employed by the police department. So, yeah, our accident review is very thorough. Our use of force is tremendously thorough. Every time an officer uses any level of force on one of our citizens, or engages in a foot pursuit or a vehicle pursuit, whether they tase somebody, you know, that's a real popular thing on, you know, in social media right now is the use of the taser. Whatever it is that's slightly out of the ordinary, it gets reviewed at every supervisory level, up to and including me. And at every level, I require the reviewer to make sure that they review the body-worn video, so that the paperwork matches the video, so everything is transparent. And in Indiana, there's all kinds of freedom of information. What am I looking for? Public records requests that allow certain people to view videos. So it's not like we're hiding them and they can't be altered, you know? So the level of transparency, and I know that's been a big buzzword lately, but I've never experienced transparency in policing like we have now. I don't know if that touched on your answer or not, but you know, I'm a member of the—
You did a fantastic job.
I'm a member of the International Association of Chiefs of Police, the Indiana Association of Chiefs of Police, and the FBI National Academy Associates. And that's a group of chiefs and sheriffs and superintendents who all graduated from the FBI National Academy. And so we have we have conferences and magazines. We have email threads where we're all trading policies and seeking advice from each other. So I think we're all really well dialed in to what's going on nationally. And I'll tell you, even though it may not appear this way, at 6:30 on NBC, CBS, or ABC, we are trying hard to reestablish trust and, as I said, legitimacy in this post-Floyd era, which was a devastating, just a simply devastating incident, not only for the people involved, but for our profession. So we're working hard and we're doing our best. When we're right, I'm going to say we're right. And when we're wrong, if we're wrong, and we will be at some point, I'll stand behind that podium and I will admit it, and I will tell you what we're doing to correct it.
Thanks. Thank you, Tiffany.
Thank you.
So other questions from our assembled masses here?
Crowd's going wild.
Russ, is that your hand up? Actually, we'll do Ross first and then Russ Dodge. So Ross Snyder here in our audience.
Hi, Chief. How did the 4th of July festivities go compared to other years?
It's concerning, I would say.
Yeah, so the question, for those of you viewing may not have heard it, how did the Fourth Fest go? Thank you for that softball question, because I am absolutely, I can tell you the Fourth Fest is a day-long festival that starts out with a parade, a car show, a fish fry, 5 bands, a carnival that was tremendously well attended. I mean, literally thousands of people visited Lawrence. The parade, by the way, the parade was almost the entire route.
It was fabulous.
Shoulder to shoulder, children, parents, families, the entire route, sometimes 2 and 3 rows deep, right? And the flow, you know, in my case, I had my police vehicle with the badge on it, and people were waving and smiling and saying thank you. And my director of crime prevention, Lisa Harvey, and I were tossing out candy to the kids, and they're very smart kids because they had their bags with them. It was almost like Halloween.
They're not real smart. I'll tell you why in a minute.
Okay, all right. But so that parade was great, and the entire day, we had no incidents. I couldn't believe it. An event this size is bound to have an arrest or two. So, you know, somebody's drinking or some fight breaks out and somebody's injured. We had no injured people. We had no arrests. We had no significant incidents. And there were some skirmishes inside the carnival with the kids, but those got broken up instantly with no lingering effects. Obviously, nobody shot, which is, in this day and age, is top on my mind as a safety concern with a large crowd. And then, you know, of course, the fireworks, which were fantastic. And then, as everybody's trying to get out of there at the same time, we had our officers posted on all the major thoroughfares and intersections to help, you know, direct people out so that they weren't hung up by red light, you know, the routine traffic lights cycles. And as I reflected on that night and I got home, I was so grateful. I really was, as chief of police, that we could hold an event like that in Marion County, which, if you've been watching the news, has been it's been challenging in Marion County this year, and not have anything go wrong. And it's not just the police officers and firefighters, the medics and EMTs, our civilian volunteers that come out, which we had about, 40 civilian volunteers. It's our streets department. It's Eric Martin, the director of our parks. The amount of time he put into preparing the Lawrence Community Park for that event was, I don't even know, I can't even tell you because I don't know how much time, but I can tell you the place was beautiful and it's well taken care of. And again, thanks, Ross, for that question, because in previous years, you know, sometimes we're sitting on a powder keg and we don't know, it just takes one incident and then, you know, chaos. And I think we managed it very well. And although I give a lot of credit to the people, you know, within the city administration, the volunteers, Lawrence Township Schools had a seat at the planning table. Really, the credit goes to our residents and our guests and visitors who came to Lawrence, enjoyed what we had planned, and, you know, behaved well. So the credit belongs really to the people that attended the event.
It was a fabulous day from start to finish. The city did an amazing job, and you were right on the parade route. It was shoulder to shoulder for the entire, I think it was about a mile.
Yeah.
Where the parade route length.
Yeah.
The one funny, so the Greater Lawrence Chamber parade float, which was the big yellow truck, and we had a giant inflatable Uncle Sam in the back.
I saw that.
And as we're going through the parade route, on more than one occasion, some kid on the side of the road would go, "Look, Santa!" So
there's that.
Yeah. Oh well.
Yeah.
So Russ Dodge, you had a question, I believe.
Yeah. Yes. First off, keep up the good work like this past weekend's event. You know, I think having everybody involved is very helpful, and I think that is how you prevent situations from happening. But my question for you deals with the people that aren't part of that. The people that, no matter what you try, or, you know, their answer is a gun. You know, how do you get through? Some of those people, it doesn't seem to matter anything you come up with. The gun is the only answer they know.
Yeah, so we do have bad actors oftentimes that show up at large public events. We know that, we've seen it across the country. And and it's not revolutionary, but it is, as soon as we see the very first incident where we see some people doing some things they shouldn't be doing, we act and respond. I'm not gonna say aggressively, but we assertively make sure, firmly, and we communicate that that will not be tolerated. And where we have problems is where we don't do that. Because believe me, they test the water and they'll see what they can get away with and what will be tolerated, and then they take it to the next level. We had 17 volunteers from the Marion County Sheriff's Office that were helping us on Sunday. 10 of those deputies were assigned to the carnival. And alongside Lawrence Police Department officers, the first sign of any kind of problem was addressed quickly. People were taken out of there, not arrested, but we communicated right away that kind of behavior is not going to be tolerated. And, you know, I know in this day and age of social media and texting, and, you know, young people have the ability to instantly communicate. That gets out. And what we saw last year at the Marion County Fair, although it wasn't Lawrence, but at the Marion County Fair, we saw the crowd of bad actors grow quickly because word got out that this is a place to come, you know, get into it and fight. And there were shots fired at Marion County. And what we did, I think, is we locked it down and we really communicated that this is a family event for kids. And most of the people in there were great families with little kids, enjoying rides, getting funnel cakes and cotton candy and all the food trucks. And it wasn't a place where we were going to tolerate that. So to answer your question, Mr. Dodge,
let's go beyond.
It's a quick, assertive response of the first sign of trouble.
Well, Chief, let's go beyond the event. And obviously, you had it well covered, and that's fantastic. But let's talk about like the targeted shootings in a neighborhood or domestic or something like that, where you don't necessarily have officers right there, and those are people that, in some cases, they're not going to listen to what you have to say. How do you, you know, I'm going to hear your take on how can you know, help prevent that kind of stuff?
So for those of you at home, how do you prevent I think what you're saying is the more random acts of violence in the community where people are shot or killed. Some of it, I hate to say this word, unpreventable, because we know they're preventable, but in terms of an officer's ability to predict and be where something bad is going to happen, it's hard. So what we do is we look at stats, we look at where crimes are committed, we target behaviors, we target people who we know are involved in things. We've got some crime cameras in Lawrence now, so we're monitoring, you know, we're looking for stolen vehicles, and sometimes stolen vehicles have people in them who are wanted on warrants, who have illegal guns, who have illegal drugs, and that's how we do it. You know, we don't profile. I won't tolerate any bias-based policing. First of all, it's ineffective, and secondly, it's immoral. And so let's just go back to the ineffective part. If you want to fight crime, it's going to be about looking at what our community is telling us is going on and focusing our limited resources in those areas. And that's really the best we could do. Whether we're getting lucky or whether we're being professionally effective, I'm not exactly sure, but I can tell you, you don't really see Lawrence in the news for the wrong reasons very often.
It's not luck.
Sometimes you do, and this past weekend you did see Lawrence, not related to Fourth Fest, but we had a couple incidents over the weekend, and I can tell you we're drawing down on who's responsible for that, and we're tracking them down. So yeah, I mean, great question. It's tough to answer, other than just to say we're doing our best, and our men and women out there, particularly the ones in uniform, you know, on the front lines in the middle of the night, and then of course our detectives. My gosh, our detectives, they get over 125 cases assigned to each detective on average a year, and those cases have to be worked and seen through to resolution. Sometimes that involves the filing of criminal charges. So those detectives, I think sometimes I feel like they're drowning, but it's the detectives who often notify our officers about who we're looking for as they gain evidence, you know. So it's gentle pressure, relentlessly applied, and that's kind of how we do it.
Thank you for the
Thank
question,
you.
Russ.
Thank you. Thank you.
So, Chief Hoffman, last question, and I ask this of all our guests: why do you love Lawrence?
Ah, gosh, it's not. I mean, it's not going to be what you think it is.
Okay.
You might think I'm going to say something like, "Well, our officers do such a great job, and everyone is so safe that you can't really live in a community with any kind of quality of life if you don't feel safe." I do believe that, by the way. But what I like most about Lawrence is the two different kind of feels that are here, right? You've got a very much kind of a small town feel. You've got the Blue Star banners honoring our military heroes. You've got the Fort Bend area. You've got the all the history that's right right around us right here. But you go a little further south and you start getting into more of an urban feel. And if I wanted to go to a Colts game, on one day, I know that's Indianapolis, but if I wanted to go to an NFL game on an afternoon or an early game, and then go have dinner at a small town type of a diner or restaurant, there's countless places like that here in Lawrence. If I wanted to go to a state park, you get a lot here in Lawrence, and you get the small town feel. You get your own police department, your own fire department, your own mayor and administration, but really you're surrounded here by a major metro and all that has to offer. So the schools here are fantastic. I raised both my children here. They're both about to graduate college successfully. So I think there's economic development going on right now that's unprecedented, and all for the right reasons. We're trying to transform Pendleton Pike and attract more businesses along there that contribute to the community. So I'm optimistic and hopeful that this city is on the right track. I mean, the roads here, you hear so many complaints about potholes in Indianapolis. And here around Lawrence in the wintertime, in the springtime, yeah, we have our potholes, but we have a guy named Jim Hennigan and his team at the streets department. They're out there filled like 6,000 in a couple months, this past spring. I mean, something crazy. So I don't know. I feel like you get great attention here. As a citizen, as a resident of the area, you got a great quality of life. And I think it does go back to safety a little bit. Of course. The feeling of safety. Our parks, 11 city parks in 20 square miles, which is Lawrence, right? 50,000 residents enjoy those parks. The parks are not overrun. They're in great condition. They're usually not crowded and packed, and a lot of green spaces, so I don't know. Is that adequate?
That is a great answer and a great way to wrap this up.
Yeah, and thank you. And the chamber and your group of business people who all come together. I don't want to neglect that either.
Well, thank you. I think we have a good business community here. I'm glad they gave me a job.
Yeah.
So thank you all. You've all been watching Chamber Chat presented by Bose, McKinney, and Evans. Our guest today has been Chief David Hofmann of the Lawrence Police Department. Thank you to everybody who joined us here live at Porter Books and Bread. Thank you to everybody who joined us online via Zoom or in our Facebook Live. So we'll try to be back and do this again in 2 weeks. So you all take care and have a great week.
Thanks.
Applause. We've never had applause for this.
Crowd goes wild.